Welcome to Smoke and Roll Podcast, special edition. Coming here, I'm waiting for my good buddy Tom over at Relief to join in. But in the meantime, felt like jumping on and talking about what's going on. It would be crazy not to. And if it's just going to be me, I'll give you my take on it. Maybe there's some questions out there, but we'll be doing this for about 15 minutes or so, and hopefully Tom's able to join us. So last week, there was Virtus Labs out of Lansing and Bay City. The MRA issued a recall on flower, all flower tested from them, and it was the beginning of August up until, I believe, sometime in October or November, sorry for the exact dates. And it sent shockwaves over the industry because there's claims that it's up to 60 or 70% of the flower tested, depending on who you believe, and Virtus had gone around talking to the Free Press and MLive and different publications, saying that, hey, they do test 60-70% of the flower. So the MRA has been kind of, mum's the word, a little close lip on what exactly it is. There's a lot of theories out there, whether there's aspergillus. Is it a mold issue, the way it was refrigerated, is it reporting? On my end, we've talked about it a lot here. We're all speculating, of course, but it's kind of one of the industry's worst kept secrets. You go to Virtus if you want high THC numbers. So that's one of the questions I kind of pose and think about is, what makes this lab, new to the game, so special that they're testing 60 to 70% of the industry's flower? Is it because they're that great at business? Is it because everybody loves cops? Hey, Tom. What's up, Tom?
Hey, JP.
Yeah, I think that's one. Hi. I was just going to finish the thought here and let you jump in, but, just saying basically, to me, I look at why would one lab be testing 60 to 70% of the flower? Is it because they're that so good at business, better than everyone? Is it because they, give great customer service? But like I just said, one of the worst secrets in the industry is that they'll juice your THC. So hey guys, hey Kevin, thanks for joining as well. I just kind of kicked off and kind of gave the background, just saying what just happened. The MRA's kind of mum's the word, and there's reports. It could be aspergillus, THC, it could be refrigeration, it could be reporting. First of all, why don't I say thanks for coming on. And Tom, what's going on up there in Kalkaska? How's this affecting you?
Ryan, we've been pretty busy fielding, making sure that our customers that we work with haven't really been affected. So if people have been, we wanted to make sure that they know that we have clean product that isn't affected, to first help stock their shelves, and then obviously fielding phone calls from all over. This is definitely widespread, affected a lot of people.
Yeah. Thank you. Kevin, thanks for joining us. I know you're getting that world famous Willie's escape cakes in the flowering right now. Can't wait to have that back. So you didn't have flower on the market, but what are you hearing, and what's kind of the blowback that you're seeing?
So Tom had mentioned that they haven't been affected all that much, and their people haven't really been affected. But the bottom line is that with this kind of thing happening, everybody's affected. Even though I didn't have flower on the market at the time, I'm affected, Tom's affected. You take 64,000 pounds of marijuana and put it in or out of any market, it's going to have a direct effect on costs and supply and demand. And so even though your product may not have been caught up in the testing portion, you directly had an effect on your wholesale cost and price base based off of this flower in the balance, right? And so, it's a frustrating deal. I thought that we had a regulatory body in place to take care of things like this so that this wouldn't happen. This is a big black eye on the industry, and we need some major changes because of this. This is really bad.
Yeah, I mean, there's been obviously testing lab scandals isn't anything new in the rest of the country. Everyone knows that the labs that are willing to shop and get you the THC or do things. They always do better. I'd heard about it, in the last decade in the different states. But you're right, it is a bad look. And, this is something, speaking on that, but I'd like to get in the background. And I remember back, I was in federal prison in 2014, and I got the newspaper sent to me and articles all the time. And Michael Comorn had busted this case wide open with FOIAs with the Michigan State Police Crime Lab, or Crime Syndicate, whatever you want to call them, and with PAM, Prosecuting Association of Michigan, and Ken Stecker, who I had been in many marijuana meetings with back to 2010 when I first started getting involved with Cannabis Patients United. So what they did was, in Michigan, PAM and the State Police Crime Lab, Greg Machad, who is the owner of Virtus, they really colluded, and they went back and forth and said, hey, this edible, any concentrate, a vape cart, hash, anything, shatter, real popular in 14, anything that isn't flower. Well, you can say that it's synthetic THC, because how are you going to know that it came from real marijuana flower? Now, in those emails that were FOIA'd, you got the actual state scientists saying, hey, what are you guys even talking about? This makes no sense. Innocent people are going to go to jail. This isn't the intent. And they basically told them to bugger off. And they went on and shopped it to prosecutors, because some prosecutors, like in Newton County, wouldn't touch it because it's BS, but more conservative prosecutors on the west side of the state did, and they went in raiding people, guns drawn, kicking in doors over maybe a brownie or an edible, or RSO for your kid or your grandpa or for yourself. That was happening too. And there's people. Max Lorenz is the kind of the famous case that blew it open, but he just had a little bit of that. Personal, it was totally legal, and he had his son taken away for 2 years by CPS. 2 years. And this is who's responsible for that, because they wanted to change the law that we had passed and help get more prosecutions, and get more people in jail, and get more people in the system. Fast forward 2016, 17, the Michigan MMFLA gets passed, and Virtus, I'm hearing about it, is got in Lansing, and they're bragging about it because it's all the state police, and it's these same people. We figure it out. And it's right there in Frandor on Saginaw. I pass it every day. My wife knows all about this lab, because anytime she's with me, I drive by, I swear at them, I get mad because I remember this. And fast forward, that's who's running this lab, and they have a history of breaking the rules, showing kind of low moral character in other aspects, and never really getting their hand slapped. So, from day one, not testing with Virtus has cost me some deals. People have, when I went out and talked to other growers, I'd say, I can't have Virtus on my package. I'll never do it. The response I would get is, well, I need to get them for the high THC. That's what sells. So, and that's been said to me over and over. So it's really pissed me off. It puts people like us at a disadvantage that don't use them, because they're the people, the 60-70% of the state that uses them is going to have artificially high THC numbers. And what else that's done that's caused a lot of damage is now it's made this artificial THC craze in Michigan, where the consumer thinks that 28 is normal, or 23, even though it's junk weed. Maybe it's remediated and it's artificially high, and it's really hurt the education in Michigan as well, and they're partially responsible for that. So. I rambled on a little bit, but that's kind of my history lesson on it, and why, I'm not surprised, at all. If you get away with 20, 30 years of your career breaking the rules and getting it covered up, and then, and then you're in the habit of doing it still. It's not like they just decide to screw around like this. So it's really a black eye too on the whole, the state of Michigan's crime lab, and then the state police, in my opinion, because we know that's we've been around it. We know what's going on with that, and they were a part of it. And this is the people that were running it. So that's my thoughts. Tom, it looks like you want to say something.
Yeah, well, it's kind of corporate cannabis's dirty little secret when it comes to total yeast and mold remediation of product, which is something I want to speak to. I believe that the time has come to have a discussion about safety and products and everything, and standards. I mean, there's standardization of these tests and everything. So we have to really start leaning on the fact that we can't just have these large corporate grows with these huge flower rooms where it's almost impossible to mitigate any type of mold. So what a lot of companies will do is they will remediate their product, which means they will either use things like radiation, a machine that uses radiation to kill all active mold and fungal spores and bacterial cells on the plant, so they don't grow in a petri dish when they run testing on it. Or they will also use an ozone generating machine. All these things, what they do is they decontaminate the flower surface, so that when it comes to testing, the plating method that we use, and
PCR.
Thank you. Yes, qPCR methods in order to determine if we have contamination of yeasts and molds. Well, if you're basically just killing anything on the leaf surface, but those mold spores are still there. So people that have, autoimmune issues or anything like that, they shouldn't be exposed to any of these things at all. So really, these machines, any product that's out on the market should have an indication on the packaging that this product has been remediated, so the end consumer is educated and they know what they're purchasing. Really, it's these massive grows when you don't have your rooms under control. You have to turn to these types of methods in order to keep your product from failing microbial tests. And essentially, that's what we're looking at here. We're looking at an Aspergillus issue, which technically is everywhere in the environment, but it's so dangerous that if it's found in a sample, it is an automatic fail. Presence doesn't matter. It has there's no limit if it's a pass fail if it's there or not. So Aspergillus is really the thing under, is the big public health problem that I want to talk about. But yeah, I mean, juicing up THC numbers just creates this artificial desire for something that isn't really necessarily, important to the product. So I don't know. I think we really need to start looking at public safety. A lot of people want to go after caregivers and everything, and that was the big MCMA argument, right? That It's a health concern. The children are going to get a hold of it, or it's a health concern for people because their product's not tested. Well, see what happens when product is tested and the players aren't being held accountable. And how long did the investigation go on for that this product was allowed to go out onto the market?
Of course, yeah. And how long to go? And obviously, we know this whole caregiver thing isn't safe as a whole ruse. We know that the MCMA just wants to get rid of home growers. There's a lot of those companies are for sale, and the big boys, the public companies, the big M&As you're seeing aren't going to purchase them. They literally say, no, you have to there's too many caregivers. We don't want your market. It's too competitive. So they went under the guise of safety, but now I think they've opened up a can of worms because for a lot of these companies, their SOP is to remediate before they even send it to testing. So like you said, Tom, how do they get it under control? They just remediate everything, and then they send it up to, most of these went to Veritas, so you get remediated, dark, cannabis that's 28%, 27%. It's disgusting. If we really want to talk about safety, I mean, how many consumers out there would want to know if their cannabis was zapped or microwaved? Let's put it on the bag. Let's do that. Let's talk about safety if you want to talk about it. So, they're the big mouths on this and all that, and most of them tested with Veritas, and most of them remediate. So, you're right. Time to do something about it.
Yeah, guys, to the basis of all this, I've been complaining about testing since day one, and we're about to see a major back haul in testing. Tom, you're going to be affected, I'm sure, at some point, because whoever you're testing with, they're going to get backlogged with all these tests, and you're going to get pushed out 6 weeks like we were in the beginning. And then people aren't going to get flour on their shelf for 2 months. And, it's just the whole thing's ridiculous. I've complained about the testing standards from day one. We've seen, tests where they test something for microbials and it's at 170,000 CFU and fails, and then you have a retest and you get a 0 and then 2,500. The results are completely all over the place. From testing facility to testing facility. The THC content, you could break a bud in half, send it in, and you'll get 2 different numbers. We've done the test many a times when I was running the dispensary, and so there's major change that needs to be done here. You can't have one cog in the wheel disrupt the system this bad, especially when you go back to the basis of this. People aren't dying from marijuana. So the extent of what we're caused to have to do to get this stuff to market and get it to consumers is unreal. And then you've got the part where you've got this stuff that's been that's sent for testing. It's now been sitting for 6 weeks at your facility. It's not tested again before it goes to the retail. So in that 6 weeks, if it's stored improperly, you can still have mold on it. You then send it to the retail, even if it doesn't have mold then, and then it gets to the retail and sits there for 6 weeks and gets more. What are they preventing? Is I guess what I'm getting at.
Well, I think you'll see some of that change when things eventually do go federal anyway, because there's going to be more. You're going to have quality control methods and testing and verification methods of your the way that you clean your facility, the way you handle products, and the way that you package everything are going to be heavily regulated, even more so. So, really, yeah, you're right. Down the chain, down the stream of the chain of custody of these products. You have you have post-testing packaging, then you have whether it goes to bulk flour to deli-style provisioning centers, or you're packaging it into prepackaged eighths or whatever. You still have the handling of that product prior to that, and then you also have people at the dispensaries that are handling. So if there is an issue with retesting, how do you prove that the source of the retest? The MRA will come through and they will take random samples just to make sure that things are passing. At least that's what I've been told. But how do you tell at what point in the chain of custody that the failure happened? But there are grows that are infested with aspergillus and other systemic issues too. So you have to be able to detect when places have these types of issues. So what kind of standards do you put in place to ensure that people are actually growing in sanitary conditions and providing safe products? I get it. The metric at which we define safety is not correct, in my opinion. I agree with you, Kevin, but I do also believe we have to have some kind of standard of safety, because mycotoxins would be my first choice of what we should be testing for, because yeast and mold on anything is not necessarily inherently harmful to people. It's what's produced in order to, the mycotoxins that are produced by these mold spores that can create issues for people. And, those are the types of things that we should be testing for, not necessarily how much yeast and mold is present on a sample. It is a slippery slope, and Michigan has some of the most stringent testing standards in the country. But you're right, people aren't dying from smoking weed. From growing in the basement all the way to here, we're still yet to have any real issues, and that's been quite some time.
Yeah, and I would hope on Kevin's point on the backup of the labs that whoever the people that like Tom and Driven and everyone else, Kevin, that have gone with other labs and not gone for the high THC based on for whatever reason. Us showing that loyalty to those labs, I would think that they take care of us completely first before start bringing in the Viridis products and gaining new customers. So that's what I've seen so far. with ours, and even the transport too. It's a heyday for the transport companies. It can be. We've had no issues. Ours stayed completely on point as we deliver every Thursday, and we're delivering now as it's Thanksgiving week. So appreciate that, and I appreciate those companies doing that. I guess we're gonna see it. I don't think this is gonna go anywhere anytime soon. It's a mess out there, and I'm hearing that a lot of these vendors, the growers, the retailers are calling and they're not getting even calls back or answers. So it's a lot of confusion. I think the MRA probably needs to do a better job of explaining it to everyone and what's going on. But it's not just gonna go away anytime soon. Tom, you got something?
Yeah, I just thinking about the recalls and who's responsible for what. The state requires as part of our insurance liability package is that we have a product liability clause, and I'd like to see how that is actually going to be handled.
Yeah,
we're being solicited by insurance companies saying, "Hey, we now have this. Don't let this affect your company." It's like, well, actually, it's a requirement by the state. But I think it is only around $100,000 in coverage. I mean, that barely begins to scratch the surface of what could potentially happen in a situation like this.
So what happens to Virtus? Do they weather the storm? Do they pay everyone off? Do they, does their insurance cover all this, and then the reinsurance kick in, and is it conifer, and is it they really being tested this time? Because holy smokes, would this be a large claim? And this is probably going to affect if there is a big claim covered, testing lab rates are going to go up for everybody. And that's just it. They're gonna make that back, just like any industry that has high claim rates. And I guess if you have bad actors in your state doing stuff like this, then everyone's gonna suffer, because the higher the insurance rates go, the higher the test costs go. They're just not gonna do it and not pass them along or not make money. So I guess we'll see on that. It's fascinating. It's the biggest marijuana recall right in the regulated market, I think, in the history of the world, which, being kind of, grandiose, but it is. And we're in the middle of it, and the week before, probably the biggest sales week in the state. We got Green Wednesday, we got Black Friday, we got Thanksgiving, everyone's back. So just a huge boomerang or, turn or path, whatever you want to talk it, that nobody... some people might have called it, but I wasn't expecting it.
So hey, I want to touch base real quick on some things that I've heard, and in no way or shape or form am I defending Virtus in this whole scenario. But so I've heard that earlier I believe it was this year, there was a recall based on some handling of some chocolate products, and it was my understanding that the process in which that happened was based off of a threat to the MRA of litigation over an incident that happened prior to that. And then days later, the MRA raided their facility and made a whole big deal on recalling product and made a huge issue out of it. Now, it's my understanding with this issue, I wasn't privy to the meeting that the representatives from Virtus had with the dispensary owners about what had happened, but from my understanding of what I was told, the claim is being made that Virtus had pushed back on the state about some earlier fines that they had received and some bad PR over their activities, and a few days later the state raided their facility, and this whole thing has now snowballed, and they claim that this is retribution from pushback that they've given to the state on what's going on now. If there's any validity to that, the state is rolling the dice in a huge way, because if that's the case, and with the ramifications that are happening with what's going on, if the state at some point is held accountable for what is happening, what does that look like, and how does that affect our industry and how our industry operates, and where does those funds come from to cover these expenses? And I hope to God that that's not the case, and that there's a lot of legitimacy behind all of this, and this isn't a game of a pissing contest. I want this industry deserves to be ran in a fashion that's fair and equitable for everybody, and it's not about beating chests, and it's not about being who's the biggest and the baddest. I think it's about providing a good product to the people, a safe product, and if we're going to allow things like this to completely disrupt. We really need to take a look at how it's being run,
I heard that too, Kevin, but I look at it and like, all right, they got to say something, and what are they going to say? And for me, if I know somebody has a history of shady activities or a history of, in my opinion, lying, like, oh, we're just going to start believing them now like this? It's just strange to me. How do you test 60-70% of the market? How does that happen to flower? It's so like and maybe it is, maybe it's not, but maybe they are getting a lot of complaints. I'm sure there's a lot of labs complaining about it. I'm sure it'd be like, you guys are growing and the other grower gets to use like, you guys use T5s and they get to use, all the new LEDs, something else. It's not. So I don't know, but I also kind of humorous and ironic that the people that used to raid people and when you talk back at them, say maybe I know personally when you talk back about the police, they come and they kick your ass and you get on like welcome to the real world. That's how this shit works. You've been doing it to people forever, so the state's never been held accountable for doing it otherwise, and now you got away with it. So maybe, I don't know, maybe the state is doing it, but in the history they don't get held accountable. But guess what? That's right. How it works.
Welcome to our sandbox. Right? Yeah. Play by the rules now. Guess what? Somebody's. It is very ironic and somewhat poetic in a way, but I don't like to, wish any ill will on anyone, and we hate to see anyone affected by this, especially people that were unaware of the. The possibility that things may not have been handled the way that they needed to be. I can't really speak to that, but honestly, as soon as the hairs go up on my neck about something and you hear stories, and they could just be rumors, but the best thing to do is to back away from those situations and not get involved.
Yeah.
Yeah, guys, I do want to point out too that this is an immense recall. This is a huge $200 million worth of product, right? The information that we're getting from the MRA is so minimal, it's almost impossible for people to figure out what's happening or how to navigate this right now. That to me is a huge red flag from the state, in my opinion, when we're talking about you trusting things and who's at fault in these situations. They're giving zero information to people, and every day, every minute that goes by without information is breaking people. The small players are gonna have major problems going into the holiday season because of this, and I just think it's irresponsible to say that Viridis is back open and operating and willing to do testing without any explanation whatsoever about what is actually happening is to me is
strange, real strange. Good point, Kevin. Good point, because there are a lot of good people I know that did use them and weren't aware. It is what it is, or maybe they were just trying to hold on and do it. But just talking to the stores this week, even some stores, they might be 60, 70, 80% of Viridis tested stuff. They weren't expecting to have to just get, buy another $100,000, $200,000, whatever it is, amount of flour. So even though some stores haven't even figured out how to buy more product, even though they desperately need it because it was audit season, taxes are coming up, prices dropped for a lot of these guys already, so it really is bad timing for that as well. So I do feel for that, and those growers that are all of a sudden have this money tied up, or they're getting demanded that they refund this, and they just got going and they're going grow to grow. They finally got going, bootstrapped everything. One bad crop is catastrophic for people that aren't backed by lots and lots of money. So it is sad, and then I didn't realize it's that little of information, as I'm not a licensee that gets the information, Kevin. So yeah.
There isn't.
I mean,
There
Tom,
aren't
you-
any
you-
resources either. There are
Yeah,
no
you feel the
resources
same- you-
out there for us to tell this. Go ahead.
You feel the same way, right, Tom? Yeah, I mean, I'm not,
Oh, yeah,
I'm not
man. No,
exaggerating
for sure.
that, right?
No,
yeah,
I mean-
yeah.
No, I mean
That's
the
rough.
ramifications are huge, and yeah, I kind of forgot my original point, but yeah, it's obviously huge, and there's no standard at which we can tell, if the lab that we're working with is on the up and up with the MRA, or is there any kind of heads up that maybe these labs that you're working with may be under investigation or anything. Is there a way for us to know that who we're working with is safe? I mean, I trust who we test with 100%. And we even go farther enough to get air quality we sample our air quality weekly in every single room in all of our facilities to ensure that we're not noticing any trends in microbials or anything, just because it is such an important thing for people to have, access to clean products. So without any of that data, if we were to see something like this happen to our products, and we didn't have any kind of data to back up that, we actually know for the past 10 months we have been testing all of our facility just to ensure, because you got to stay ahead of the curve. But those are extra expenses that we pay for, and we don't transfer over to the customer or anything, but we just want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. I mean, I think these are all things people should be thinking about. If you're not paying attention to the trends in your facility, just because you have a grow and you put out product, if you're not taking the right, steps to ensure that what you're growing is of a high quality and passes testing, and you don't know what's happening inside your facility, then you're putting yourself at great risk for something like this to happen.
Yep, I agree, and I know before you guys got on, I said I was going to get on for about 15 minutes, so I know we got some hard outs here, and we're going to rock out, and just so everybody knows, we will be back on tomorrow with Roberta King to talk about the different events she's done with cannabis already, the marketing, and also tomorrow is Redemption, and Farmhouse is doing a felons feeding families. Myself and Casey are the owner of Farmhouse and Felons, and we've got 100 turkeys, needy families in need. And we've got stuffing, and we got all types of stuff, and Chris Silva's back doing a vendor day there. So, we're gonna have that. It'll be a fun show tomorrow, and just wanted to jump on and talk about the lab stuff. It's really historic, and the ripple effect is going to be interesting, and from an economic theory, for a practical standpoint, I always, this is. It's fascinating. It just, everyone that's been affected by it and didn't really wasn't a part of the problem. It's hang in there, and hopefully we can get through it. So, Tom, any final thoughts?
No, man, just see you guys tomorrow. I'm glad we're going to jump on one more time before the holidays, and yeah, if anyone's out there and they're affected by this thing and they didn't see it coming, they're blindsided. I feel really bad for anyone, especially if there seemed a little bit of gloating earlier about that, because there's nothing really funny about it. But really, I suggest forming a strong relationship with the labs that you're using, and always test their baselines too. We're always testing the labs that we used with other labs to make sure that they're still, in line, to make sure that these tests, because they have to mean something, right?
Yeah.
So, relationships.
Yep. Kevin.
Yeah, I feel like, this is very similar to the pandemic with, shortages of masks and gloves and all that stuff, and just not being prepared. I think that this is something that the state didn't obviously anticipate and didn't have a prepared plan in place for a recall of this size, and what the plan was going to be to communicate to the purveyors. That being said, Tom had mentioned with his air sampling and all that stuff, staying ahead with his business plan. I think that this brings up some really good topics on liability between testing facilities, the transporter. If I have a fresh frozen transport and it's heading up to Kalkaska and the truck breaks down for 4 hours, who's liable?
Right.
If I don't have air conditioning in my truck and the terpenes get cooked off and transported in my prepackaged flour, who's liable? So I think this is going to be a question for lawyers you're going to see people drafting up contracts for testing and for transport and for sales to dispensaries, and it's going to be interesting to see it play out. But yeah, excited for tomorrow, and yeah, had fun today.
All right. Yeah, thanks guys for jumping on, and just another day in Michigan cannabis, year 12 for me. So it's always a roller coaster. Never know what's going to happen. With that, we'll see you tomorrow.